Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns, I teach knitting workshops in person and online, and I sell pretty yarns. And normally there are pretty yarns on the shelf behind me, but I've just come back from a yarn show a couple of days ago and I haven't unpacked yet. So there are no pretty yarns behind me. There's rather empty, sad looking shelves behind me today. But welcome to today's video. Whether you're new here or a returning viewer, I really appreciate your time. I upload videos to YouTube every single week, and I do a combination of vlogs, podcasts, knitting product and yarn reviews, and I talk about my designs. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and please leave me a comment. This is my new Trenor cowl, which was just published a few days ago, and there's a separate video where I recorded like a project vlog on this project. Most of it is the other version. I knitted two versions of this, and the project log is mostly on the other version, which I can't find at the moment because I packed it away for the show I went to last weekend and now I can't find it. So this is the one that I'm going to show you in this video. So in this video I'm going to show you how I weave in the ends and then how I block this cowl. In this video, I also refer to how I knitted in the ends when I joined in a new yarn, because this is knitted in a set of 100 gram set of mini skeins. So I change colour every 10 rows, I think. So I had to work out whether I was going to weave in the ends or knit them in, and I decided for most of the ends I actually knitted them in. And I used the method called clasped weft join. For some reason I always struggle to say that. And I'm actually going to do a separate tutorial on how to do that while you're doing brioche knitting. So that will be a separate tutorial in a few days' time. But I wanted to show you how I blocked this and also how I wove in the ends. Now this method of weaving in the ends that I use for this, I'm not saying it's the only correct way to weave in ends, but it will work for any brioche project really, because brioche projects, unless it's a sweater, then it probably will have a definite right and wrong side. But shawls, scarves, anything else really, cowls, doesn't really have a right or wrong side. Brioche actually looks quite good on both the right and the wrong side. So in this video I'll show you how to weave in the ends to make sure that they don't show in the final product. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you like it. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and please leave me a comment, and I will leave the link to this pattern below this video. If you just click, I think it's either like a down arrow or a show more, depending on what device you're watching on, you can find the links to this pattern. It's available on Payhip and Ravelry, and I will also link the video, the project vlog that I recorded for this pattern. And if I remember when I release the clasped weft join video, then I will leave that below as well. But if I forget, just go to my YouTube page, and there is a playlist called knitting tutorials, and you'll find that there. It will also be linked on my website under knitting tutorials. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. So I finally finished this cowl, and I thought before I block it I would weave in the ends. So I'm going to do a separate tutorial because this was knitted using mini skeins. I did actually, most of the time when I changed yarn, I did actually knit in the ends. But there was a couple of times, like in the beginning when I cast on, that I didn't. But most of these ends were knitted in, so they just need trimming. But the ends and the beginning ends need weaving in. So let me just grab my needle and some scissors, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So main problem is when you cast on, you do end up with a little bit of a hole here, and you end up with an end either side. So let's do this end first, because that is the same end, or the same color that I cast on with. I cast on in this color, and then I started knitting with that color and this color. So we'll do this end first. This hole isn't actually too bad. My previous mobius had a much bigger hole, but you want to use this end to try and close up that hole. Now the challenge with this is because the mobius is a continuous loop, it doesn't really have a right or a wrong side. it's not like you can weave in the ends on the wrong side, because there isn't really a right and the wrong side. So you have to try and be a bit careful when you weave in the ends. I'm not saying this is the only right way to do it. The main thing is that you try and weave in the ends so they can't be seen when you're using it. When you're using it, the fabric is going to kind of like fold over and things, so the ends won't be that visible. So even if you think you can see them, you probably won't be able to. Now, I could have knitted in the beginning end as well, but I didn't, because I knew I would get a bit of a hole. So I thought it would be better to weave it in, because then I could close up that hole. So can you see those two loops there of the different color? I'm going to go through those because the yarn comes from here. So if I go through those, it'll kind of go over that gap. Now what you can do is you can try and do like a duplicate stitch, but I'm not very good at duplicate stitch, and it's not very easy to do it on this kind of project, I don't think. So I'm going to go in there because I just want to try and close up that hole a little bit first. Now this yarn, because it's been kind of floating around in my knitting bag for a while and it's kind of got touched a lot, so it's got a little bit fluffy. That's kind of fluffed up a little bit. Then if we go in there, that kind of closes up that hole. There's also a little bit of a gap there. So we'll go through there and in through underneath that one, I think. But I think that looks a lot better. I've knitted this on slightly bigger needles than what I would have knitted this yarn on normally. So it is a little bit loose. And where I've done the knit one yarn over knit one into one stitch, you do find that you get a little bit more of a hole. So, you know, there are these little kind of slightly looser bits, but that's fine, you know. Gives it a slightly kind of lacy look, I guess. So now I need to try and weave this end in. So I'm going to go up here because that's the right color. So I'm going to try and do is just go. I've seen a lot of people suggest that with brioche, is the best thing is to go like under these strands like that, but that will make it visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under these stitches that are in the same color as my yarn. So I just go under both strands of one stitch, and then I go under the two strands of the next stitch going the other way. And like I said, I'm not saying this is the only right way to do it. If you have a different way of doing it, that's fine. I'm just trying to work out the best way of hiding them, because you can see, you can't really see them because they're going under that column of stitches that are the same color. So the column of knit stitches and through there. So I'm just going in one stitch that way, the other stitch that way, so back and forth underneath the stitches. So that's probably enough. Then I always like to go back a couple. 1, 2, that stitch is a little bit bigger, so we'll go through that one because that's a bit smaller. That will probably be enough. And then I'm not going to trim it completely short because it will stretch a bit when I block it. And that's why I've left some of these a little bit longer. I might just trim them a little bit more, and then when I've blocked it, I will go back and trim these a lot more. I'm just checking that I have actually knitted in all of them. I think I've done that one, because I got a feeling there was a couple that I didn't knit in. Okay, let's see what else. There's a lot of ends around here because that one's been done, that one's been done. Okay, that's the end, that's the cast on end from the other side. So it's the end from when I started knitting the first chart repeat. So let's take that one, because on this side you have the knit stitches. That means that if I flip it over, those stitches here will be purl stitches, and those stitches here will be knit stitches, and the knit stitches will be in the right color. So I'm just going to take it through the fabric to the other side, flip it over, and then you can see on this side, I just move the pink out of the way. The pink is from my cast off edge, I think. So here you can see I've got the knit column is in this color. So then I can do the same thing as I did. So because the yarn is on that side, I decided to go into that column. I could probably go into that column, but I'm going to go into this one. And because the yarn is on that side of that column, I'm going to go under the 2 strands. So each stitch is made up by 2 strands to form like a V stitch, if you're looking at it in the right way up. I'm holding it kind of sideways now, so the V's look like they're lying down. Then I'm going to go under the next stitch the other way, and then back towards me under the next stitch, away from me under the next stitch, back to me under the next stitch, and then there we go, and one more, and then that stitch kind of column stops. So then I'll just go back a few stitches. Now you may also want to just check on the wrong side that it's not too visible. And if I look on the wrong side, that's the column that I've gone under. That's the wrong side of that column, and that looks fine. I'm happy with that. I can't really see it. If I look very, very closely, I might be able to spot it, but nobody is going to look at what I'm wearing around my neck that closely. And then, right, that's enough really. I don't need to go all the way back. So then I'm going to trim that one again. I'll leave a little bit of a tail. Let's just check these other tails. That one, those are knitted in. So I will do, oh, that one, I don't know. Is that one knitted in? Not sure about that one. Okay, this one is knitted in. So I will trim that one a bit more. I'm just going to trim some of these a little bit more. Some of them I didn't trim too much when I knitted them in, so I'm just trimming them a bit more just so they look a bit tidier. Now that one I'm not sure about, that yellow one, because that's where I finished knitting with the yellow colour. Because I did one final round in the pink before I cast off. And I don't know whether I held it double with the pink for a few stitches. I can't quite tell. So I think I held it double with the pink for a few stitches, but I can't quite tell. So just in case, then this side, the knit column is the pink stitches. If I take it through here to the other side, the knit column will be the yellow stitches. So I'm just going to go under, do the same thing, just go under the yellow stitches, under the 2 strands. There we go, hang on. There we go. That looks okay. And I'll just go, I think I did probably knit this one in, but I can't quite tell. And I only did it last week, but I've already forgotten. And I'm just going to go that way, and then that way, and then I'll go that way again, and that's it. Right. Let me just pop that in there, and there we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then we'll just do trim that one a little bit, and then we will do the final one. And like I said, I will do a separate tutorial on how I knitted in the ends, because I want that as a standalone tutorial, because it might be useful to use for other things. So I will link to that below this video. Right, okay, so that's where I joined. And normally when I cast off in the round, when I get to the last stitch, you normally get a bit of a gap where you cast off between the first and the last stitch of the round. So when I get to the end of the round, when I'm casting off in the round, when I have 1 stitch left on my right hand needle, I usually put my needle into the first stitch. I think it was that way around. Normally go into the first stitch that I cast off, and then wrap the yarn around my needle, so I end up with an extra stitch on my needle, and then cast that off. So I kind of join it to the beginning, but that means you get a little bit of a hole like that sometimes. But that's fine, because we can weave that in now. We can secure that now. So I'm just going to go across there first, and then I want to try and close up that little bit of a hole there. So I'm just going to go under those 2 pink strands there, into that pink strand there. Oh, hang on, let me just take that needle through there, because it kind of got tangled up a bit. Yeah, that's a lot better actually. And then I'm going to go back up to the edge, and I think with the cast off yarn, the yarn I cast off with, I'm just going to go in and out of the cast off edge. So at the top of the edge, you got stitches in a kind of V shape lying sideways on top of this. I cast off using the Russian cast off, which is a very stretchy cast off that I use for lace knitting. If I have a tutorial for it, I will link it below, but I can't remember. And it kind of gives you this like row of stitches kind of on top of your knitting, if you like. So I'm just going to go in and out. So it's the same thing we've been doing, it's just these stitches are on the top edge. So you can see I'm kind of pinching them with my thumb and index finger just to kind of hold them in position, if you like. Then I'm just going under the two strands, just back and forth. That's probably more than enough. Yep, that's quite a long way. So now I'm just going to go back a couple. There we go. So I'm going back about 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. There we go. And then you can't really see it because it's hidden inside the top edge. That's quite a good thing, a good tip for the edge of a shawl as well. If you cast off the edge of the shawl, you have to weave in the end. I tend to either weave it up the side of the shawl or in and out like that of the cast off edge. Okay, so I think that's it. It looks a bit scruffy because I do still have some of these ends, but once I've blocked it, I will trim those. I don't want to trim them before I block them. Sometimes I do trim them before I block them, and then when you stretch it, they kind of get buried inside your knitting. But a lot of people leave them to afterwards, and I think I'm going to leave them to afterwards this time. So I'm going to go and give this a little bit of a soak, and then I'll come back and show you how I block it. Now to soak it, I just put it in lukewarm water with a little bit of wool wash for about 10 minutes. To be quite honest, quite often I don't leave it in for 10 minutes. Sometimes I just kind of put it in, squish it around a little bit, take it out. That's it. I'm a little bit impatient sometimes, but you don't need to leave it in for more than 10 minutes. I hear about people soaking their knitting for hours and overnight, and in my opinion, you don't need to do that. Unless it's a very big thing in a small bowl of water, then you might do for all the water to penetrate. Or if it's pure silk, you will need to leave it for a little bit longer because pure silk absorbs the water much slower. This does have silk in it, but it's only 30%. I mean, if you're going to wash something, if it's dirty and you need to wash it, you might leave it for longer. But this just needs a bit of refreshing because I've been knitting it, so I don't tend to leave it for that long. But you know, you do whatever you want to. But I don't leave it very long. Okay, so I've soaked it for a few minutes. I took it out of the water, squeezed out the excess water. So when I was soaking it, I noticed there was a little bit of colour loss from this bright pink. It's very, very bright and saturated. Now, you know when you buy like brand new dark jeans and you wash them and a bit of blue comes off in your water, or you buy a brand new red sweater and you wash it with something white by accident and it all turns out pink. Well, that's basically the same thing that happens to your yarn. So if you're going to knit something that has maybe this a bright red or pink or really rich saturated indigo blue or anything like that with a very light color, then I would knit a swatch and try and wash it and leave it in the water for as long as you would if you're going to wash it, hand wash it. Get a lot of people who really panic when they have color loss from yarn when they wash it. And unless it's going to colour other yarn you've knitted it with, it's not really a problem. It's quite common. It's not because your yarn's not set properly. It's not because the designer's done something wrong. It's just because of the excess dye, because it's just a really rich colour. When I used to do hand-dyed yarn, I used to rinse it really, really carefully, and there were some colourways that no matter how many times I rinsed it, there was still a little tiny bit of colour in the water. And I've had that when I block stuff, there's been a little bit of colour in the water, but I haven't had a problem with it wearing it, with colour coming off of my clothes and things like that. But just giving you my opinion here. So I've squeezed this, rolled this up in the towel, squeezed out the excess water. You don't want to rub it too much, especially this yarn, because it is yarn that might felt. So the problem with the mobius is that you have this kind of built-in cross. So that makes it a bit difficult to block because this will not flatten out. This cross is here. So if you lay it out so that cross is on top, and then depending on what it is, you might just be happy to like lay it out like that, give it a bit of a stretch in all directions, and then leave it to dry. That may be all it needs if you're happy with it. I'm going to actually pin it out a little bit just to even it out a bit, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I'm going to take one blocking wire and go inside here like that. So that's inside the mobius, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Oops, and I nearly knocked my camera over. I could do with cutting a couple of these blocking wires in half really, because sometimes I don't need them quite as long, but I'm worried that's gonna, well, one thing, I don't think I've got anything to cut metal with, but I'm also worried it's going to make the edges too sharp. So I'm going to put one of those, so the edges will kind of scallop slightly. So if you wanted to, you could use pins and kind of pull the edges out where they naturally want to kind of scallop a bit. So if you see here, you pull those out. Actually, I might do that. Okay. I'm going to do this standing up, I think. So I'm going to do this side first. I'm just going to stretch it out, put a knit blocker in down here, and one at the top, which I don't think you can see. Apologies for that. And then one in the middle. Because I have a wire in there, I don't need knit blockers right up close to each other. You don't really need knit blockers, you can use pins, but knit blockers are easier. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm not going to stretch it a lot, just a tiny bit. Try and make sure that that edge is about the same as the one over here. Okay, so the same thing at the top here. Try and stretch that out so it matches the one over on the other side. Put that in, and then I'm going to put one of these in the middle. And then I'm going to use pins for this. I can't remember what I did with the first one. And I'm going to pull these things down to kind of create a little bit of a scalloped edge. So you can just see where it naturally wants to stretch, I guess. I'm just pulling those out like that. And I might just pull that one down a bit as well. There we go. And on this side as well, just pull this down a little bit. There we go. So I can't actually see what I'm doing now, so I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing. Now you can see my hands, but because I walked around to the other side of the table, I can't actually see it. So again, I'm going to try and work out where this one to kind of stretch, and then I'll just pull those. I can't remember. Okay. Then I need to work out what to do with the rest of it, and I kind of would like to pull it out like I did, but I don't know whether it's going to really. So I think I'm just going to like leave that like that. Yeah, I think I will just leave it like that. Now what I did with the first mobius was that I left it like this to dry. I'm going to see if I can put this on my windowsill so that if tomorrow, if it's sunny, it'll be in the sun. But because part of it, like here, is just one layer of fabric, but here you've got 2 layer of fabrics, and here the layer of fabrics are kind of crossed over each other, so you get like 4 layers of fabric right in the middle here. So what I did with the last one was that I left it like this till it was probably about half dry, and then I took all the pins out, moved it over, I flipped it around, so that this bit was flat at the bottom and this bit was crossed over like that at the top, and then I pinned it out again. because it just means that it'll dry a bit more evenly. So you could, if you wanted to, pin out this edge here. Can't remember what I did on the first one. I don't think once you wear it, it's going to make a huge amount of difference with this. But you could just go around and just pin this one out a little bit. Like so. But obviously you won't be able to do this thing in the middle here. Now I do wish I'd used that pink at the beginning. I was thinking if I used it at the end, it would be a bit more, there would be more of it kind of on show, if you like. I don't know. I kind of like it down here, but it feels a bit tighter up here for some reason. I don't know. I think I'm going to just leave that edge to flop over because it just feels a little bit tight. There we go. I'm going to leave it like that. It's not that easy to actually block a mobius because of this cross in the middle. My favourite colours in this set is the pink and the yellow. And I kind of wish that I had started with those because I think they would have been a bit more dominant. But what I was thinking was that when I wear it, the top and the bottom edge might be seen more. But like with the yellow, I did a whole repeat. With the pink, I only did half a repeat. So I probably should have switched in the pink where I did the yellow and then the yellow just at the end. But, you know, you live and learn.